Hello everybody, I'm John, this is JP Strategic Investments, and today we're going to talk about Patriot One Technologies getting a school contract, actually an entire school district contract here. And there's also one more thing I want to touch on with a recent filing that maybe there was some confusion about initially. I kind of made some comments about that, clarified some things on my Discord, but in case any of you guys aren't already in there and haven't kind of figured out exactly what that filing is about, I'm going to quickly go over that before we get into the school. So actually, let's just jump right into that for a second here. If we take a look, this is the recent filing that was filed a few days ago on the 21st, I believe. And there was some speculation as far as whether this was a new offering, whether this was, Patriot One issuing more warrants, or whether it was, something else. Basically, my suspicion initially was that it was related to the previous offering, especially because the date here was March 17th, 2022. I thought that was a little weird. Also, it says here in connection with the public offering, this amount of warrants here is very close to what seemed like what should have been the amount of warrants that would have been issued in the previous offering. And I was actually able to confirm that this is just some housekeeping, some end of fiscal year filings that Patriot One is having to do in relation to the previous offering. So this is not a new warrant offering. This is just basically housekeeping, okay? Now, this is good for a couple reasons. One, obviously, there's not more dilution happening, right? But two, again, as I kind of talked about in one of my previous videos, it is somewhat odd and, in my opinion, a good sign that we haven't seen yet another capital raise, because the last earnings report left us with only about 6.3 million in cash, and in that quarter, I believe they burned around 5.5 million in cash, right? The next quarter has already ended. It ended, almost a month ago, back in October. That means, most likely we're actually sitting in a much better cash position. And in my opinion, by my estimations, it likely means we're seeing some very good things as far as revenue. And hopefully we'll see that maybe in the next couple of weeks with their next earnings report. But, just wanted to make sure everybody knew this was not a new offering. And I think that is a really good sign. As far as their cash position, as far as, what we're seeing with contracts. And, speaking of contracts, obviously we have the recent school contract. So let's dive into that. There's a couple key things in this announcement that I want to touch on. First of all, obviously the fact that it is a school district. Now, Patriot One they could already have some school district contracts that they just maybe can't announce, right? We don't quite know that. But this is the first actual, official announcement that they've gotten in not only just a school district, but in a school in general. So the big thing about this with a school district, right, is it is basically, a new market, right? And it's a very important market because if we think about, Patriot One expanding into different markets and different market opportunities, right? Schools is a huge opportunity going forward, right? If you get into several large school districts across the country, you could be talking, hundreds, if not thousands of lanes going out to these school districts. There's, we all know there's tons of schools across the U.S. And not only the U.S., we got, Canada, and expand internationally eventually, right? Schools is a huge market for this type of product, for the Smart Gateway. So that is really big that they've actually pushed into that market, that they're getting accepted not only in a single school, but across an entire district. Now, this district, not a huge district. If you look at their website, kind of hard to find, but if you go to the select a school here, you can see that there's 9 schools. Now, some of you guys might say, well, there's some elementary schools, middle schools, early childhood. Not necessarily sure if those will need a lane or a Smart Gateway. I hope you're right. I wish you were right, but we've seen shootings at elementary schools just in the past year, just a few months ago. I really wish that they didn't need it, but it is very possible that each one of these schools is going to need one or two gateways, in that contract, unfortunately. But, as far as Patriot One goes, probably looking, in my opinion, if you look at maybe 1 to 2 lanes per school, generally schools like to have only really one main public entrance. So you're probably only looking at 1 to 2 lanes there, possibly more. But in my opinion, you're probably looking at maybe around 15 to 18 lanes or gateways there. So not a huge contract, but again, the really big thing here is that they're moving into this market of schools. And not only that, but once they get this done solid, once parents and teachers and students and other school officials from neighboring districts, things like that, see this solution working, then they're going to want to go with Patriot One too, right? So this is really big, not only from just getting into the market, but also expanding within that market and really taking advantage of that opportunity with schools. Now, the next thing here that I want to talk about is something that this guy said, Robert DeSimone, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. He's the Director of Security at the Lakewood Board of Education. So what he says here is really important because, and you would hope that, any customer, any school district would do this anyway, but I'll just read you this quote here. It says, after sending security experts to trade shows to evaluate options and performing an aggressive analysis of various technology solutions and rigorous on-site testing, we were impressed with the versatility and consistency of Patriot One solutions. So that's really important because that means that they did evaluate several other different solutions. Obviously, we don't know which solutions they were, but that means that Patriot One stood out to them in comparison to their competition. That's always a good thing to hear from a customer. And the next thing that he says here is important as well. This is kind of the last main little tidbit in here that I think might have been overlooked. And this is right here. I'll read you this quote here. The smart gateway can be easily moved to different areas of our facilities depending on events we are holding and can be integrated easily with future technology systems and upgrades in Lakewood schools. Now, obviously, again, a nice kind of little feature there that it looks like schools and different venues are kind of gravitating towards is the ability to move around the system, right? Initially or previously, you couldn't maybe do that with Patriot One systems. It's really good that with the Smart Gateway, they've integrated that feature. The big thing, though, I think, is the second part of this sentence here, right? This part where he says, and can be integrated easily with future technology systems and upgrades with Lakewood schools or in Lakewood schools. This, in my opinion, is pretty much a reference to future Patriot One products being overlaid on top of the Smart Gateway system here. We have, VRS, other analytic systems like that, maybe future roadmap for Patriot One's products, different things that they might come out with. This is a great opportunity when you get into a school district and, when other school districts see this and they go with the Smart Gateway, then you go to the school district and you say, hey, we have this other thing that you can add to your security cameras that can help you recognize weapons visually. And we have this other thing and this other thing, right? And it's a very good way to kind of get your foot in the door and then layer on more and more products and bring in more and more revenue, but also at the same time, make these schools safer, right? So that I think is a really important line there that was maybe overlooked in the initial press release here. But again, main points here, really great that they've got into schools, right? Hopefully this opens up the opportunity not only to get into neighboring school districts, other school districts that see this, whether it be from visiting parents or staff or things like that, right? And finally, the ability to upsell and layer on different products and things like that to basically turn this into a larger and larger revenue stream for Patriot One. So those are kind of the main things. And then lastly, obviously, that filing, making sure everybody knows it's not a new offering. It's just some housekeeping. So that is definitely a good sign for Patriot One. And hopefully we see some good things. Hopefully we get the earnings report out in maybe a couple weeks or so. Usually they do it around the first or second week of December. Other than that, of course, leave your comments, any questions in the comments below. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. Have a great day.